Hey class, welcome to this presentation for our week's work, which is going to be focused on a wonderful contemporary artist living today who focuses on very specific stories and storytelling through the art form and visual form of silhouette. Her work really focuses on power and maybe the movement of power, and I really want you to enjoy. And also, while you're looking through this work, think about the work from a perspective of how could you maybe create a silhouette that told a story. Our artist that we're going to be looking at is Cara Walker, and I hope you enjoy her work. So first, I just want to kind of talk about how she does life-size, very large, sometimes even larger than life's silhouette images. And in these images, uh, she is able to tell a story. So when you look at this image, what are some things that you can tell about the character just by looking at the silhouette? Maybe the age of the character. What about the shoes? What is this character doing? So when you look at these images, think about those things as you're looking at it. What kind of details are given in just the simple form of a silhouette of something? How can that story be told? So as we go to this next image here, you can see that this character is in a specific position, right? What is she doing? And now I want you to look at the mask. So when you're looking at the mask or the hat, depending on how you look at it, it's interesting to see the way that hat is and kind of the style of the African style mask that also then just looks like a normal kind of like a big hat that maybe someone would wear. This is an image of her hanging one of her shows, and she actually is really pretty prominent, one of the more well-known artists that's showing in various different galleries, kind of, and even installation works these days. Um, but she was born in California, and really in her silhouette images, she she strikes and tries to maybe sneak in little details. So the more you look at them, the more you notice about them. Here's an image of how those works would look in a gallery setting. So when you are kind of walking through the spaces, you can see that you're actually in a rotunda in this image, which is a circular space. There's no beginning or ending to this story. Oftentimes people think of these as images that are, about slavery back then, but she likes to comment how this is, yes, it's based in history, but we're living in history to this day. Here's another image of her next to her paintings or her work, silhouette cutouts. And this is actually one of my favorite images on the right here. This image is taking place with not only the positive and negative space that's really interesting with the two different characters, where this character first is the positive space and the black around it is the negative space. And then the black around it becomes the positive space for the background, which then becomes the negative space, but this is actually then done on top of a photograph. So that's maybe something you could consider. Your work could have white background to have very good contrast and emotion there. Or you could consider maybe some sort of a background that would have social context to the cause that you're going to be creating your artwork about. Um, so here's that transition of power, the transformation of power. And I want you to notice here, who's holding the shovel and what could be represented here in this image. So you get kind of two distinctive looks, one person chasing the other, even the detail of like no shoes to shoes, and then this being something that is considered a property item that could be used for making money and digging. Here's another image. Um, just another really powerful image that kind of once again leads to this story, and you can just, as you look around it, think about the imagination and what that looks like, um, tying into these imaginative worlds that she's able to create in silhouettes. This is actually one of her most recent works. In the last couple of years ago, she created this image or this kind of cart that sits down and actually can be played. and it sits in a place where there was really popular for slave trade in America. So she has this object that sits there and actually can be transported to different areas. But interesting to see how she's using now this in her contemporary unique shape, and also something that is interactive. But now I want you to think about your own silhouette story. So you are going to be asked to create something. Hopefully, you're able to do it a little bit on a larger sheet of black paper so that you can get more detail in there. But the first step is going to be to choose a topic and something that you're passionate about. Maybe thinking about maybe the transforming of power, or something that you see as something you're passionate about, not necessarily like the sport you're passionate about, but some issue or topic that you want to talk about. The next thing is going to be step 2 is going to be to research that topic. Step 3 is going to be, after you've done a lot of research, gather images that relate to this topic and just look at kind of what the images look like. What does this topic like visually look like? And how could you think about that in a silhouette? So then you're going to create in step 4 silhouette sketches to kind of just sketch around and figure out, okay, so what could this actually look like? How could I tell this story in one single silhouette or multiple silhouettes? And then the last thing is going to be to make your silhouette story that could work for your topic. A couple tips after you've gathered the images and you're making those sketches, um, then just make sure when you're doing the drawing, remember that your silhouette can be of figures, but it could also be of something else. And that will really be shown in the end, the silhouette part of it, not the details on the eyes, but it's just the outline. Another tip is just when you're drawing your final image on a black sheet of paper, you could cut it out like Kara Walker did, or you can basically then glue that sheet of paper down to another white sheet of paper or a different background. You could flip this and do a white on a black background, or grays on a white background, but we are really looking for that stark contrast that brings out the story. This is just one example that was turned in. I have many examples throughout the last years, and this was one that just was a nice, clean, neat, and example of how you can just kind of get into the negative space of things by simple object cutouts and the transforming of ideas and how that can transform power. All right, that is it for this presentation.